Tonight, 5 GOP candidates take the debate stage again. It's Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, Tim Scott, and Christie. They're going to battle it out for who could answer the moderators' surely ridiculous questions best. But with World War III inching a little closer every day, tonight I thought we should focus on who might make the best wartime president for America. How will each candidate keep us away from a worldwide catastrophe if war is inevitable? I hope it's not, but if it is, which one do we want leading us? Tonight, we dive into their answers on national security. But first, Joe Biden. Do you remember this moment last year?
I was in the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping, traveling with him. That's we traveled 17,000 miles when I was vice president. I don't know that for a fact.
Wow, that's traveling the foothills of the Himalayas. I guess he was some sort of Sherpa for Xi Jinping. Sounds like an adventure. In fact, Biden has had so many adventures, alleged adventures throughout the years. He is basically Forrest Gump. Yes, we go there tonight. Hello, America. I'm all a tingle. The third Republican debate tonight. Third one. What could happen? There are really two things that everybody wants to hear tonight. One, anything at all from Donald Trump directly. That's not going to happen. Two, hey, can somebody assure me that we're not going to get into World War III? I don't think we're going to get any substance on that one either. World War III and national security, another terrorist attack, should be the theme for tonight's debate. Should be every single question, but it won't be. Instead, we'll get, ready for a whole bunch of gotcha questions from journalists who are more interested in posting clips to their social media pages than actually doing their jobs. By the way, our friends at Salem are the co-hosts of tonight's debate, and I saw a quote in the Washington Post. The headline was, NBC's partner is a company that questioned 2020 election results. Yes, and what's weird is Salem's partner, NBC, in tonight's broadcast, questioned the 2000 election, the 2012 election, the 16 election, and if anybody wins from the conservative side, will also be the ones questioning the 2024 election. But why play fair? We're living in unprecedented times, and the next election is smack dab in the middle of it. We're currently waging a proxy war in Eastern Europe with a country that holds the largest amount of nuclear weapons. Yay! At the same time, we're inching closer and closer to a broad war in the Middle East, a war that could put us directly into contact with Russia's ally, Iran. Yes! Israel recently estimated that Iran now has enough uranium to build 5 nuclear weapons. Will anyone on the stage tonight have a plan to de-escalate any of this? Do they care? Do they mean it? Do they know? The risks to the entire world in the coming weeks and months, unfathomable. I can't tell you what it's going to be like next spring or next summer or next November. I can't. The whole world could be on fire. And that's not even counting the immediate threat to our homeland. I don't know if you've heard these stats because nobody likes to talk about them, but since October of last year, 22,000 Russians attempted to cross our southern border. Now, we don't have any idea how many were successful and got away, but 22,000 we caught. Kind of seems relevant, doesn't it? I mean, just a little bit. As pro-Hamas demonstrators and violence spreads all over the world, a 20-year-old Jordanian national was just arrested in Houston. Yeah, he illegally purchased a firearm while in the country on an expired visa. allegedly known to be in direct contact with radicals and was researching how to construct bombs. A local enforcement official told CNN that he was, quote, plotting to attack a Jewish gathering. Now, let me show you some of the other numbers from the Border Patrol that might concern you. Since October of last year, here are some of the encounters from the Middle East that we know of. Afghanistan, 6,386. Egypt, 3,153. Show me Iran, 659. You remember what 22 hijackers did? Yeah. Syria, 538. Here's a good one. Turkey, 30,830. All coming across our border because the direct route to any place is really you go to Turkey, you hang a left, you're in the United States, and you can go anywhere from there. Now, keep in mind, the largest transit location for ISIS terrorists in or out of Syria is Turkey. That's great. Pakistan, 1,613 came across our border. Lebanon, 164. Yemen, 139. Iraq, 123. Now, I just would like to take all those numbers. These are the ones we caught. Okay, we don't know how many people got across. A lot more, I'm guessing. Give me an over and under. How many sleeper cells are in this country right now? Now, I know the FBI is busy tracking down those damn Christians and those white nationalists and those January 6ers. But there might be some other people they might want to take a peek at first. These are the issues the next president is going to have to deal with. And later in the show, I'm going to do the work the moderators tonight probably won't. I will show you what each candidate has to say on the questions we wrote to them that actually matter. Are we headed to World War III? What do they plan to do to de-escalate with Russia? Will they support Israel? Do they plan to go into any other countries like Iran? How will they fix the border? You worried about terrorism? These are the questions we want answers on. And I am done trying to decipher anything from the current Biden administration. You know, I think you can summarize their entire domestic and foreign policy with two words: pandering and lies. Now, Democrats have sacrificed our national security, sure. The very social fabric of this country, gone, sure. But it's in an attempt to make their candidate relatable. And relatable to insert random subgroup here. You know, they want to do that. And that's the policy, whatever it is, whoever I'm talking to. Meanwhile, they reorganize society and fundamentally transform every aspect of our life. The magic trick, really, that Democrats have pulled was to shape the ballad of Joe Biden. I mean, it's actually quite impressive. Now, I'm old enough to remember when you caught a politician in a bald-faced lie, that would be the end of their career. But that was last week. Biden lies nearly every day on the dumbest of things. He's actually considered more relatable for it. It's almost like a movie script. You know, the campus moron lies about his credentials, lies about his background, somehow gets elected to public office, sniffs a few heads of kids, while his own kid sniffs other things, amasses millions of dollars off his family name through corrupt business deals, and then winds up in the White House at the ripe old age of 175. I mean, that's a movie. Now, I'm here to tell you, I have cracked the Biden code, and I want you to follow me through on this, okay? Whose birthday was it this last July? They turned 25. Bingo. Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump. Can you believe that? Now, I've been thinking a lot about that, and I think the entire plot line for this movie was stolen, plagiarized. Biden. The movie was hailed at the time for its originality, but was it? Was it really? I reveal the motherlode when we come back. like that music. Oh, you caught me dancing to it. If you're like me when it comes to the clothing that you wear, especially the clothing that you paid your hard-earned cash for, you want it to be made here in America because American manufacturing matters. It's the backbone of our economy and the thing that puts food on our tables for our fellow countrymen and women. That is one of the reasons I love partnering with companies like Grip 6. Grip 6, it's a true American experience. When you buy socks from them, let's say, their socks, for instance, when you buy them, you're supporting the American rancher who raise specially bred sheep that produce modern wool. Then the American manufacturer who wash it and process it. And then the people who weave it into socks that keep your feet warm in the winter and cool in the summer. The American businesses that have accepted the risk that comes along with only use American-made products and American labor, I don't know, I think we should reward them with at least a look at their product. If you like it, buy it. Do yourself a favor, check out Grip 6 today. Put your hard-earned money into a company that does it right here in America. It's grip6.com/Beck. That's grip6.com/Beck. All right, I want to talk to you about something, and I don't want you to dismiss it out of hand, okay? I'm not an investigative journalist, but I play one on TV. And I've been thinking, who the hell is President of the United States? On so many levels, that question could take you many places. But I wanted to know the man, because I've heard so many stories from the man. Now, don't dismiss this because you've heard a lot of things that you've said. That's crazy. That can't be. That'll never happen. And they've all happened. So hear me out. Is the president maybe an audio animatronic gone wild? Don't know. Is he an audio animatronic with new AI and therefore hallucinates things? Is he a real human being, a real boy, but his son has done so many drugs through osmosis, the president is hallucinating? Or is it something else entirely? Let me take you back to Forrest Gump. In the movie Forrest Gump, he shows the world through his eyes. Big-hearted idiot that always seemed to find himself directly in the middle of major history-altering events. With prominent and famous people. He was there at the White House. If it happened, and it was significant, we learned Forrest was there. So no matter the small size of his IQ, anyone could relate. Now, does any of this sound familiar? To the writers of Forrest Gump, oh, we're on to you. It's now abundantly clear that this entire plot line was ripped off decades ago on the decades-long career of one Joe Robinette Biden. The evidence is clear. Let me show you.
Hello. My name's Forrest Gump. Do you want a chocolate? I could eat about 1.5 million of these. My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Okay, amen. Now, this is true for who Joe's parents and grandparents were. Just like the rest of us, he couldn't pick them, but he was lucky. Joe Forrest Gump Biden came from an amazing line of elite athletes. Here he is last October.
My grandfather, Finney Scamp, would really be proud of me right now. No, I'm not joking, he would. By the way, he's an All-American football player, John, in Santa Clara.
Huh. Wow, amazing. His grandfather was named an All-American at Santa Clara University. Wait, I mean, is this where the writers of Forrest Gump got the idea to make Forrest a football player at the University of Alabama? Yeah. Now, crap, this was actually proven to be a lie. There isn't a single NCAA record that shows Joe's grandfather was ever named an All-American. But, hey, it's relatable, so let it slide, okay? He's an old man. He's like your old grandfather. Another famous quote from the movie.
Now, my mom always told me that miracles happen every day. Some people don't think so, but they do.
Okay, sure they do. Because on multiple occasions, Joe Biden, the man that supposedly received 81 million votes, a miracle in and of itself, claimed to have met the inventor of insulin. Watch.
When Debbie and I passed this law, it included everybody, not just seniors. And so what happened was we said, okay, you know how much it costs to make that insulin drug for diabetes? Cost. It was invented by a man who did not patent it because he wanted it available for everyone. I spoke to him, okay?
I mean, wow. We should totally believe him when he whispers rather creepily for all of us to get vaccinated. I mean, why wouldn't we? He actually met the inventor of insulin, for crying out loud. This is an honest picture of the two of them together. It's totally credible photographic evidence that we obtained from the source. Now, wait, there were two inventors of insulin that shared Biden's view of not patenting insulin. They both died before Joe was even born. But who are you to judge? Let's let this one slide because it drips with the word relatable, like a leaky faucet. There's just so much relatableness going on here. You know what I'm saying? Another famous quote from the movie Forrest Gump.
Mama always said dying was a part of life. I sure wish it was.
Such a relatable quote. No matter how much intelligence you have or lack thereof, we all have experiences with either the birth of a new life or the end of another. And that brings us to the beginning of the life of Joe Forrest Gump Biden. According to Mr. 81 million votes, he was hatched at the exact same hospital his grandpop died in just 2 weeks before. Watch.
My grandpop, who I never met, he died in the same hospital I was born in 2 weeks before I was born.
Oh, man, that's relatable, huh? Wow, small town, close family, the works. It's great, right? Now, I want you to forget the facts, though. Joe's grandpop actually died 2 months before he was born, but you get that. And he was also, he died in a different hospital, in a different state. But I'm serious, folks. Don't you go ruining how relatable this is. Don't. The ensuing years of this history-breaking life of Forrest Biden it's a blur. Biden would then be raised in one of the most unorthodox ways any American ever has, like ever. Forget Greenbow, Alabama. Biden was raised, in his own words, by the Puerto Rican community in Delaware.
I was sort of raised in the Puerto Rican community at home politically. And so we came here for a long time, both for business and pleasures.
That's amazing. Well, that Puerto Rican community must have had a lot of Jewish synagogues in it because he also said he was raised there as well. Now, there were 2,000 Puerto Ricans in the entire state of Delaware of 1970, but it is the size of a Renault Le Car, so maybe it's happened. But it's kind of hard to verify, and we can't find anyone that can corroborate Joe was learning how to ride a bike and throw a baseball in any of the Puerto Rican community synagogues. But relatable, you bet. Actual picture of him in one of those synagogues. After hearing that there are Puerto Rican Jews right now, they're requesting their mail-in ballots, and hey, maybe 82 million this time. Let's skip ahead. Forrest Biden claimed that his first job was at an Idaho lumber company. Now, this was, of course, news to the lumber companies in Idaho, but let that one slide, will you? It's relatable to blue-collar workers. Biden also claimed he drove 18-wheelers and had a heavily relatable anecdote about women, a woman named Big Mama.
When I was a young senator, there was a guy who ran steel from Deemer Steel out to Ohio. And so I decided to ride out with him to see what it was like on the strike. And I was driving, going through Shiloh, Ohio. And his handle was Big 10. And remember, everybody, all the truck stops were being blockaded at the time during the strike. And he called. He said, "Big Ten wanting to come in." I forget exactly how he said it.
Yeah.
And the only woman truck driver I ever knew I met that day, she said, "This is Big Mama, no room." Swear to God, true story.
That's true story. That's a true. Well, it's not true at all. Big Mama wasn't around for comment, so we can confirm that Joe actually rode in a semi-truck maybe a half century ago, but he never actually drove one. But it's relatable. There are a lot of truck drivers and Teamsters votes to reel in there. Keep being relatable, Joe. Then, of course, he's been arrested multiple times, including one during a civil rights protest. There he is. Can I just say, look at that picture. Can I say street cred? Now, none of this can be verified by a police station or activist or really anybody, but my gosh, man, the street cred meter just blew the heck up. And Biden claimed that he was accepted into the Naval Academy. Amen, brother, even though he wasn't. He claimed that he was in the top half of his law school. He was 76th out of 85. So he was actually at the top if it were only him and 9 other imbeciles. He also claimed, like Grandpop, that he could have been an All-American football player. Here he is. Here he is playing for, 49. He only played part of one semester in college, but we have the picture. He claimed he almost played for the NFL. No evidence at all of this. Obviously, that he claimed that his house almost burnt down with his wife inside and the firefighter almost died. Here he is trying to save somebody. Doesn't look like anyway, it was a small kitchen fire with no injuries. He claimed that he was the liaison between Prime Minister of Israel and Egypt during the Six-Day War in 1967, which is weird that he was, because at the time he was still in college. And the person he spoke about wouldn't even become prime minister until 1969. But they did meet, that's right, in 1973. Now, like the movie Forrest Gump, Joe never stopped being an amazing athlete. He claimed that he hit a baseball 368 feet, hit the wall at the 1974 congressional baseball game. Here he is. That's an actual, no joke. Now, according to records, Joe was at bat a total of 2 times, and he went 0 for 2. But that's because they weren't there with the typewriter when he hit that. Now, you can call him a serial liar if you want to. You can claim that all these lies have been cultivated to pander to whatever voting bloc was cool at the time. Yeah, whatever. You could say he's out of his mind nuts and has no idea what he's talking about. Whatever. But you cannot argue that without all of these lies, we may never have seen Tom Hanks sprint across the field while Jenny yelled, "Run, Forrest, run." But at least in that movie, there was physical evidence and videos of Forrest seeing and doing all those amazing things. Forrest was relatable. The real-life character of Joe Forrest Gump Biden is, well, just stupid is as stupid does. This is what we currently have in the White House. This is the person who has the finger on the nuclear football. Isn't it great? And he was going to play for the NFL, so he knows football. Is it any wonder how we are now at the brink of World War III? Everyone on the stage at the debate tonight will be better than anyone we currently have. And I mean, maybe if there's a fly crawling on somebody's head, that would make a better president. But what are they specifically proposing on things like Ukraine, Russia, Israel, and ultimately the threat of global war? Who will actually improve our national security? Who will make it worse? We go there next. I love my dog, but I'm not sure if because he doesn't seem to be in a lot of pain. I'm not sure if he's just gone into retirement and he's like, I didn't get my watch. What are you doing? Because he doesn't bark at my door anymore. He doesn't. I come in, I'll be gone for a couple of days. I'll come back and he'll just he won't even lift his head up. He'll just look at me. So maybe he's getting really, really old, or he's protesting something. I don't know. But we feed him the best we can. We've always fed him. We've fed him prescription dog food for a while. Yeah, that's cheap. Kibble food, no matter what you feed, kibble food is sterilized. It's dead food. Your dog doesn't get the nutritional needs. That's why they eat crap. I mean, usually, literally. But Rough Greens puts the green stuff in it. Rough Greens is not a dog food. It's a supplement you put on the dog's food. Created by naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, full of vitamins, minerals, probiotics, you name it. If it's good for your dog, it's most likely in Rough Greens. Dogs love it. They usually go crazy for it, but don't want you to be out any money if your dog doesn't like it. You get a free trial bag. Just pay for shipping. Go to Rough Greens, ruffgreens.com/Beck, or call 833-GLEN-33. 833-GLEN-33, ruffgreens.com/Beck. All right. We sent out a letter to all of the candidates last week. We asked them 7 questions. We said, could you answer at least 2 of these questions for us? We think they are the most important at the time. Question number 1, what is your strategy to avoid World War III? 2, with over 10 million illegal border crossings in America since Biden took office, hundreds on the terror watch list stopped by our border guards that we know of, how will your administration safeguard the country from current and future imported terrorists? 3, what is the order of importance for the U.S. right now, war in Ukraine or the conflict in Israel? 4, in the midst of the war in Israel, the United Nations made Iran the chair of their Human Rights Forum. Why should the United States support them? Would you commit to defunding the UN? Next question, is there a strategic reason for the U.S. to continue NATO? If not, would you support the U.S. from withdrawing? 6, given Erdogan's support rhetoric for Hamas, should Turkey still be in NATO? 7, first, Russia moved in Ukraine. Now Iran is moving in Israel through proxies. Do you believe China will move on Taiwan? If so, how would you deal with it? And 8, how does America avoid being spread too thin on its involvement in global conflicts that we don't give strategic advantage to our adversaries? Okay, we did not get responses from Trump and DeSantis. Christie, we did get a grease-stained piece of paper, but I think that's because he thought the Twinkie was a pin. And nothing from, who was the last one?
DeSantis.
Well, Biden. Yeah, we didn't get one.
Did you
from
say
Biden.
DeSantis?
Yeah, DeSantis, we didn't. So let me just go through. I've read all of their responses, and then I've looked at all the other candidates. And I have to tell you, there is one candidate who is like preaching to my choir, and it's pissing me off. You know who it is?
Yes.
Who is it?
RFK.
RFK. I have to just start with his. I know. I will never vote for him.
Are we in the Twilight Zone?
We're in the Twilight Zone.
Crazy.
Let me just give you some of the highlights. What's your strategy to avoid World War III? It's not a strategy. It's an orientation. I'm going to reverse longstanding U.S. policy of dominance that casts the world into simplistic categories of friends and foes. We will abandon the neocon dream of regime changing or dismembering Russia and China. We'll stop the provocation that seeks to drag them into war. We'll return our military to its rightful purpose, which is to defend the American homeland. We will negotiate treaties with other nuclear powers that limit preemptive first strike weapons. We'll embrace multipolar world and turn our money and our attention toward rebuilding this country from the inside out.
You want to embrace a multipolar world?
Which is language like what you've heard from like Russia or China.
Yeah.
Is that a bad thing?
Russia or China? Who's the other? What are the other poles?
It'd probably be Russia and China, but
let's embrace that.
Well, no, I'm not saying that but at least we're no longer trying to rule the whole world. We can't. It doesn't work.
Can I say that Russia has kind of made that word dirty, multipolar world, but that's really how the world was pre-World War I and a little bit before World War II. Yeah. But basically it just means regional powers manage their own region. That's what it means.
With over 10 million illegal border crossings in America since Biden took office, terror watch list, what would you do to safeguard? A, first, we will make the border impermeable to illegal immigration. I don't know what that means exactly. Second, we'll redirect the resources of the intelligence agencies, surveillance state to their proper job, which is to stop terrorist threats instead of spying on American citizens. Third, we'll stop exacerbating the conditions that breed terrorism. I'd like to know what that means. Support for our dictators and juntas, our regime change operations and bombing campaigns have generated a lot of misery and hate. I think that's what he meant. We're also going to return to our ideals and once more be an example of all nations of peace, freedom, and prosperity.
I mean, that's a pretty good answer. I mean, I do think it's a newfangled answer for RFK. Like, he seems to have come to this revelation relatively
That's
recently.
why I hate the fact that
Yeah. I mean, look, I just don't know.
I don't know who he is.
Him in the White House, whether he actually is tough on the border, I'm pretty skeptical on that. But he is saying the right things, I think, at this point.
I think partially, because I think that when you look at how many people have already come over and the economic sustainability of that, you have to be willing to say, I'm going to deport people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see him saying that. I know there are a couple Republican candidates who have said that.
No,
obviously,
wait, we got a few of them.
We
have a few of them. I'm going to skip one of them. Would you commit to funding the UN? No. No organization is monolithic. He talks about the good guys. We have to get the moral high ground from the United Nations. That's garbage. Is there a strategic reason for the U.S. to continue NATO? NATO is a relic of the Cold War. It's become an instrument of imperialism. It's paranoid provocations, thank you, that Russia has created that country as every enemy fears. It is time to undo the way of thinking and disband NATO.
Was that candidate RFK Jr. or candidate Jason Buttrill?
I've said basically the same thing.
Yeah.
I know.
He's preaching to me for sure.
Right. So he's a game changer. But I don't believe anything. I mean, he's a guy who literally called for my execution because of my views on global warming.
Did he mention that in any of the answers?
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
What's interesting to me on what he's saying is that no one else is saying these things. You can kind of get close with some things that Donald Trump has said in the past.
Sort of says something.
Vivek. So that's a very interesting comparison because they're the only ones with different ideas. I have a feeling that every single one of these other answers from the people that actually responded to us are kind of homogenous.
So Nikki Haley comes off very credible in her responses on this.
This is her wheelhouse, right?
Yeah, she's not RFK, and she's celebrating that. What is your strategy? Strong America doesn't start wars. Strong America prevents wars. Okay, it's a bumper sticker. The most urgent priority to avoid America getting dragged into conflict is getting President Joe Biden out of the White House. His weakness has emboldened our enemies, and we're seeing disastrous results around the world. I think that's true.
Agree.
I'm the wife of a combat veteran. As we speak, my husband is deployed overseas to keep our country safe. I understand the sacrifice of our servicemen and women. Our number one goal should be peace for the sake of our fellow Americans and children and our grandchildren. We need a president who understands protecting our people, standing with our allies and standing up to our enemies. I will be that president. Now, she brings some credibility of not wanting to be a warmonger because her husband is in the war.
I feel like she was setting us up for a butt.
No, there wasn't.
Right?
No, yeah, but there wasn't. She's the exact opposite of RFK.
So her strategy for getting us out of World War III is basically strength? Is that? I mean,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
She definitely is the most traditional hawkish Republican of this group that's left, right? I mean, she does have credibility behind it. I just don't think the energy of the party is where she is anymore.
I don't know where the energy of the party is anymore. I really don't.
I think on these topics, it is more RFK than it is Nikki Haley. Whether that is something that works long term. I mean, you look at the polling on this stuff, and that you can only take so much out of polling. But even with Ukraine, like it's not an overwhelmingly unpopular one of Biden's policies funding Ukraine. I think it's like a 15 or 20 point difference in favor. People want to continue to fund Ukraine still. Now, Republicans have turned on it largely, but Haley is tapping into that 20-30% of the Republican electorate that still wants that stuff to happen.
Can I ask you a
just don't know how you win a primary with that.
Would it be different if Donald Trump were president today and this, it wouldn't have happened, but and this stuff happened? Would we be for war in Ukraine and the Middle East?
No.
I wouldn't be, but
No.
No, you don't think so?
Well, I don't think
the Republicans
for war, right? But the question is how. I mean,
Well, I think Lindsey Graham is pretty for war.
Yeah.
To be fair.
He's just
Big
on
time.
autopilot on
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
big time.
How did she respond? Did she answer the question on Ukraine? Because that's where everything, that's the but.
Yeah, the Israel thing is easy.
War in Ukraine
Right.
or the conflict in the Middle East, she said, to achieve peace, the most important thing we can do right now is help Israel eliminate Hamas fast and as fully as possible. Swift and decisive victory in Gaza would stop a broader war in the Middle East. It would also send a best possible message to Russia and China. She says that is war in Ukraine is another part of the China-Russia-Iran battlefield. A win for Russia is a win for China and Iran. Okay. Win for Russia would not end with Ukraine. We should provide them with weapons, blah, 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 blah.
That's where you're going to find that split.
That's where you're going to find that split. And that is the statement for every neocon that's ever lived. And you literally could make those statements like, we got to stop Russia now before they spread out through the rest of the, of Europe and then the world. I mean, we could make that case right now using the same language for Canada, for crying out loud. We got to stop those Canadians now before Canadian bacon gets everywhere. It's like,
but there is a couple of things.
It is kind
There is a couple of things that she wrote that I think might be surprising. In the midst of the war in Israel, United Nations make Iran chair of the Human Rights Forum. Should we support the UN? Would you commit to funding the UN? I know what it's like to fight the UN because I did every day as ambassador. I successfully pushed for the United States to get out of the falsely named Human Rights Council. I successfully pushed to cut the UN budget. We saved $1 billion, blah, blah, blah. It's a corrupt agency that spreads hate against Israel, but she doesn't say she wants to get out of it. But then she does say on NATO, it's a success story. We just need to find our spines and not give so much money. But should Turkey be in NATO? Turkey continues to show why it's not a true partner. It criticizes Israel in outrageous ways, cozies up to Russia, gives comfort to the Islamic extremists. America's and NATO's relationship with Turkey under its current leadership must be re-examined. That's a big statement coming from her.
Once you make that leap, then look at Poland, then look at France, then look at the UK. You'll be able to find that same exact diversion in every other country in NATO. My point is everybody's interests have completely gone the opposite direction. Before, the interest for NATO was the Soviet Union, combat the Soviet Union. Now we can't even like during 9/11, not every single country came to our aid.
All right, back in just a second. First, let me tell you about My Patriot Supply. I mean, the reason why we're talking about these things is, can anyone say that you are really pretty confident that we won't be in total chaos next November?
No, actually, I'm counting on the chaos.
I'm hoping not to.
I mean, November seems far away.
Yeah.
What's the timeline in like March?
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's how bad, that's why we're talking about these things, and that's why you should have a supply of emergency food on hand. Now, let me tell you about My Patriot Supply, one of our sponsors. They are the largest preparedness company in the country, and they're offering a huge savings on their 3-month emergency food kit. You're going to get a delicious variety of breakfast, lunch, dinner, meals, 2,000 calories a day. You get drinks, everything else. Don't forget water and maybe a little heat. You get water and heat, and you got a meal ready to go. Plus, they have all kinds of stuff to make sure that you do have clean water, and you have a little kind of a stove that you can use for either an off-grid room heater or a little stove as well. They also have heirloom seeds and survival gear and everything else. You never know who our next president is going to be, and you never know what tomorrow brings. Please go to mypatriotsupply.com and prepare. mypatriotsupply.com. We are not going to be able to obviously get to everybody's answers on everything. We have compiled a list of all of the answers, and if they didn't answer directly to us, we do have, like Donald Trump, we have many of his quotes that go to answer the 7 questions that we posed. I want to go to Vivek. I want to jump ahead to question number 4. In the midst of the war on Israel, United Nations, blah, 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 would you commit to defunding the UN? Should we continue to support? In typical Vivek Ramaswamy, he said, the UN is a pathetic organization. I'm reevaluating America's continued involvement in this morally compromised globalist enterprise. He asked about NATO. He said, I'm investigating this as well. The United States and Uncle Sam have been treated as Uncle Sucker. I mean, that's pretty clear. It's almost what Donald Trump said. You don't like it?
Well, I mean, it's saying something. It's not answering the question. It's saying a lot, but it's really not answering the question. I feel like, how long has he been running now? He probably should have evaluated that and come to a determination.
Yeah, because it's really, I mean, I would argue it's not clear, right? He's saying he's clear in his tone.
Right,
and he's clear in his statements of like, yeah, they're incompetent, they're
but he
pathetic.
didn't answer the question.
But the question was whether they're funded. He
yeah.
doesn't really say that. He just kind of says, I'm looking at it, which is, of course, important, but that's probably something you want to do before you start running for president.
I mean, how do you look at it any further with the UN when you say it's a morally compromised globalist enterprise?
Yeah.
Well, then why are you reevaluating it?
Yeah.
Right? Why can't you just say, I will commit to defunding the UN because it is a morally compromised globalist enterprise?
Yeah, Vivek, like why can't you?
Well, it just seems like an easy answer if that's how you feel about it.
And it would be weird to come to the opposite conclusion after that.
It would.
Right.
So, I mean, that maybe, I don't know, maybe he's keeping his options open for negotiations or different, ideas, or, alternatives. But it definitely does not seem like he's pro-UN. Odd that he wouldn't commit to that.
It's an easy answer. I mean, the United States by far gives the most amount of money globally to the UN. So without our dollars, they're going to have a lot bigger problem on their hands. I think right now the only reason for us to stay in the UN is just for, and this is the same reason for any other major power in the world, is just for the veto power. That's the only. It's just a bunch of guys sitting around coming up with ideas. Slowly they push those under the radar, like Agenda 2030, stuff like that. But the only reason everybody else stays in is just so they can say, nope, don't do that. Nope, don't do that.
And that would be an answer I would be willing to accept.
Right.
If a presidential candidate explains
Billions
it that way.
of dollars to say no.
Well, I mean, but at the same time, things they get to derail. They do derail. I mean, all the stuff that's come down on Israel. I mean, it's 80% of what the UN does is just bash Israel. At least there is a permanent voice on that Security Council to defend them. I think that I could see that there's a role there. I would like it removed from the United States. Can we put it anywhere else? Put it in Belgium. Everything's supposed to be in Belgium. Yeah. Right? You put all the international stuff. You put it right in Brussels. That's where that thing should be. I don't want it on our shores anymore. I'm sick of these guys visiting us.
It was Woodrow Wilson and Eleanor Roosevelt's dream to build it right there.
Well, and I want to be clear, I still don't agree with the money that we spend funding it. I just think if that's a more palatable answer. I understand where Jason's coming from when he says, I like the veto power. I understand that. I'm willing to accept that answer. I disagree.
Yeah.
But I think that's an acceptable. I understand your point of view.
I would just love for our candidate to say that. Like,
right.
we're going to stop funding them, and it's a pointless organization. I'm only staying in it just to say no whenever we have to say no.
Yeah.
That's it.
So Tim Scott came out. Do you get rid of Turkey and NATO? He said, we have an interest in Turkey, neither a friend nor an enemy. Turkey should face pressure for a litany of reasons: warm relations with Hamas, support of Azerbaijan dictatorship, belligerence towards another NATO ally, Greece. It is unpleasant, but Turkey is also a strong country in its own region, and interests dictate to their continued membership into NATO, where we can best bear hug them into responsible behavior.
I mean, there's such an interesting dynamic that goes on there. Like, Turkey, you could argue, like, do we keep them on the outside and then they become an actor with no one looking over their shoulder? Or do we try to pull them into something like NATO where they're part of the international community and it improves their behavior? I don't think that's worked so far. I don't think that's necessarily been a positive, though we have had some stuff with some different international incidents over the years that our closer relationship with them and our ability to pressure them has been helpful. But I think you see the Israel part is the biggest red flag here, right? They are basically acting like Hamas. And how do we have, I mean, you mentioned this on the air, Glenn. What if Turkey is involved in an invasion in Israel? Mm-hmm. That would not be out of the question that could happen.
Or if
Israel fires back and then we're supposed to defend Turkey? Like, what? How does this work?
I haven't had a good answer from anybody on that. Well, we'll cross that bridge. We're burning a lot of bridges right now. I'd like to stay on this side of the bridge this time. The RFK response, I think. How does America avoid being spread too thin? This whole way of thinking is part of the problem. We have to end our reflex us versus them posture in foreign affairs that is always searching for the next adversary to justify $1 trillion a year of military spending. Is that what we do? Do we look for the next enemy to spend another $1 trillion a year? He says, if we don't find an adversary, we create one. I'm going to put a stop to that. Our only adversary will be somebody who threatens Americans' homeland, and will become a strong nation by rebuilding our domestic economy, our infrastructure, our health, and our environment. One war after another has bankrupted our nation.
I mean, you can say that we're looking for them, but a lot of times they seem to be finding us. They find us when they fly planes into buildings and blow up our embassies, and so many other incidents we can bring up over the years. I mean, there's obviously some strength to the argument that we are too involved globally, and we do too much and we spend too much. And I think there's a real connection with that on the right now. But we also are the biggest targets. I mean, look, you listen to the people talking about Hamas right now. They say this war is actually not against Israel, it's against America. And there are groups all over the world who are saying this and have acted on it in the past and will act on it again in the future. So we need to be prepared for this stuff. We shouldn't just be searching it out. I don't know. I think that's a bit of an overstatement of what we do. But a lot of times we're the ones being searched out, and we have to be prepared for that.
I will tell you that there's two candidates, RFK and Vivek, that feel like they are ahead of their days. It feels like that's the next generation of politician. They're so different than all of the rest of them. Do you agree with that? Yeah. I mean, and I can't say that about RFK. Honestly, I can say that's the way he is presenting himself at this time.
I think something that Donald Trump has contributed greatly is just being able and having the guts to propose things that seemed preposterous a few years ago, 10 years ago. He just came out and said it, like, we're going to stop funding NATO until nobody else would say that. They would never, like Nikki Haley's right. It's an incredible success story. NATO did amazing things, but who's now going to say, wait, so why are they still around? Not too many people can actually answer that question. And I think it's great that people like RFK or Vivek they're in that cycle right now to where we're so far removed from the foreign policy and politics of the Cold War. But I think right now that's what's guiding a lot of people like Nikki Haley or like Tim Scott.
And you are also looking at all of the systems of the Cold War. This administration is bringing those central planned kind of ideas all the way through. It's like going back to 1950, when we should be taking a huge leap forward and reimagining the way we do everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fascinating. I think they come to kind of similar conclusions, but from totally different places.
Yeah.
I mean, like RFK is really echoing what the Democrats used to say in the 60s and 70s.
Exactly right. All right. We will see you tomorrow on radio. We'll have more. God bless. Thanks for watching. Good night, America.